attention spans are just fine. It's interest spans that have contracted. Because if a kid on YouTube is interested in something, oh, their attention spans are just fine.
Right. Welcome to the Media Odyssey podcast. We have a special guest this week, special co-host. Marianne decided to abandon me and go on vacation, as the French are wont to do. And so we have a great friend of the pod. Also, I would consider you a friend of me personally and Marianne.
Thank you. Yes.
Joe Redfern, an expert in any number of different parts of the television, streaming, entertainment, media economy. In particular, today, we're going to talk about her expertise in kids. You host a podcast about kids content, yeah?
I do, yes. The Kids Media Club podcast. Yeah, we had a chap called Evan Shapiro on not so long ago. He
That
was
was a
quite
great.
fun. You should look him
That
up.
was. Thank you. I hear he's great. Nice
Yeah.
hair, I hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Gravity defying.
So in that conversation, we talked about the resistance of public service media to lean into YouTube as distribution, but we talked about it in particular around kids content. But let's back up. Who are you and what do you do? What generally, how do you describe to your mom, how do you describe to your mom what the heck it is that you do?
I think you've just described me as a jack of all trades and master of none, but actually I think that can be a superpower, being a generalist.
Yeah.
But I spent the greater part of my career in and around kids media, was involved with the team that launched Peppa Pig 20 years ago,
Oh,
believe it or
crap.
not. And then spent a good chunk of time at BBC Children's in the UK, looking after the CBeebies and CBBC brands, and again, seeing the exodus of kids away from public service and linear broadcast, which we'll get into. And then decided, I was talking a lot about how these new platforms, social first platforms were coming through. And so joined a startup to exec produce content and games that would live social first, very much in that moonbug model, if anyone knows Cocomelon.
Yeah, totally.
And really that solidified my conviction that was where the future lie. And I've never really gone back. And what's fascinating is seeing how quickly those media behaviors of kids are evolving, even in the 5 years since I left the BBC and the more traditional side of things, seeing how they're evolving and increasingly leveraging that knowledge in sport. As you've spoken about on your podcast with Marion, the way that young people consume sports is so very different to previous generations. So that transformation is coming to sports too. It's a little bit behind where kids media and entertainment has been. So having a lot of fun trying to educate leagues and federations and sports rights owners in the behaviors of those slippery demographics that are the under 20s.
And so across a number of years, I won't say decades, you've been working on young people's content across many different platforms and channels and brands and IP.
Yes.
And so you've tracked the evolution of the media consumption. First of millennials, then of Gen Z, now of Gen Alpha, not just in kids programming, but in general programming as well, sports. And
Absolutely.
there's this perception amongst especially people in the UK television business, but people across all media as well, especially the older you get, boomers, that at some point they'll just wake up and have different tastes in how they consume media and they'll return. And so I'm curious, you've been tracking these behaviors of first the millennials, now Gen Zs, now Gen As. How has it tracked? How has kids consumption moved as millennials became adults, as Gen Zers become adults, and now as Generation A enters the marketplace?
As you have so eloquently said when we've been chatting before, but also in your own communications and newsletter and podcast, there are new habits forming that aren't going to change as soon as they hit 18 or they get their first apartment. So this social first fandom, they go to YouTube and TikTok. That's their primary place to consume video content. And it isn't just for entertainment either. It's their default search engine. They're going there when they're at school to learn how to tie shoelaces. I mean, we Google things because we're text-based searchers. They're video-based
Yeah, but
searches.
I was talking to someone very high up at YouTube sales
Mm,
recently, and they talked about the way they've evolved from a desktop product
mm.
to a television product. So the difference is, yes, it used to be you just search stuff on your phone on YouTube at school, and then you went home and continued to search on your phone. Now, when they get home, they're turning on the television, and
Of
the
course.
first channel they're going to is YouTube as well. Yeah,
Of course, yeah. I mean, through connected TVs, the YouTube app is invariably there as soon as you turn on your TV. And my focus group of two, which is teenage boys, that's the first thing they click.
right.
So they're watching YouTube on a connected TV. So,
But
yes.
here's the so let's put aside YouTube because I think people are
Mm,
tired of hearing me talk about YouTube. I think what's crucial about that is yes, this cacophony, this sea of channels that is YouTube. 9 million channels that matter. I was talking to someone at Tube Filter. There are
mm,
9 million channels that matter on YouTube. Okay.
yeah,
Beyond that, though, the number 2 default and number 3 default for people under the age of 15 seems to me, at least based on data in the UK and in the US, in order, Netflix and Disney Plus. Is that
yeah.
true from your standpoint?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't know. I'd have to look at the stats, probably yours. But I mean, we're looking at where they consume content. And it's this whole mishmash, isn't it? Young people consume content fluidly across all of these platforms. And
Right,
what they really hate is barriers, that friction. But actually, a lot of
right,
business models are predicated on friction and keeping you in an ecosystem. Watch time being a key metric. So I think the point there to say is that all of these platforms are important in their lives. Yes, it might be YouTube as the first point of call, but there's different consumption patterns. They ebb and flow. Sometimes they want to sit down and they want a lean back experience, but then they want more active lean in experiences. We're talking primarily about video, but Roblox, look at the amount
right,
of time that they're spending on
right,
Roblox.
right.
Very often they're consuming it, their favorite YouTube creator whilst they're on Roblox, dual screening. So all of this
Or Minecraft is another one as well.
on Minecraft, for
Look at that,
sure.
and by the way, to speak to that and the kind of continuum, the flywheel, the IP flywheel that you were just discussing,
Hmm.
look at Minecraft. Look at the Minecraft movie. That's gonna do well more than $1 billion
Mm.
in revenue. And, it's I think in the United States, it's somewhere north of 50% of all kids between the ages of 6 and 12 play Minecraft. So it's a massive piece of IP and communication platform. It's also this, intellectual property machine, in the classic
Completely.
Disney model to a certain extent.
Yeah, and same with Roblox. On Roblox, very often called the YouTube of gaming,
Yeah.
5.5 million active experiences. That is social gaming. They're going there, they're hanging out with friends. They're not necessarily playing anything or killing a boss. Sometimes they're just hanging about in, the Adidas store. So there's
Adidas.
new IP
It's
growing there too.
Adidas. It's Adidas.
Ad- okay, sorry,
No, I'm
Adidas.
kidding. No, you're right. It's Adidas.
But
I say it
yeah,
wrong. I'm an American. I'm trying to inflict my sorry.
so, yeah, but this is again a new breeding ground for new IP. We've got Minecraft that is a huge IP at the moment. There will be IP that grows out of UGC platforms like Roblox too.
Yeah, so my question to you though is, okay, I understand what the business model is for Roblox and Netflix and YouTube. And I'll get back to it. Let's put a pin in that, as they say. But what's the business model for an IP publisher? Right? So think
Mm,
about, and I can give you a case study where begins to gel for me,
yeah.
which is Bluey, which just
Mm,
passed 10 million subscribers on YouTube. It was originated, I think, in Australia, correct?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. By Ludo Studio. Yeah.
And then BBC Studios took it
Studios.
over as a distribution platform or a
Mm,
distribution company, the commercial arm, crucially, the commercial arm of BBC, and now it coexists as a massive hit on YouTube or
mm.
here in the States. I'm just going to take the States on YouTube, and I think in the UK as well, on Disney Plus simultaneously. So explain that to me? How do how is Disney Plus okay with that? And is this the new normal? Does the IP holder really have to be the one in control of the business model versus the platform?
I think it does now. I think that's where the switch has happened because back to that fluid consumption across platforms. we speak about the attention economy. It used to be that value was held in scarcity, it was locked away on a platform. But now, scarcity equals anonymity. And in an attention economy, that's bad.
Right.
You want to be everywhere where kids are hanging out. So that means that there's been a power shift towards those IP owners, those publishers, and also creators, and we'll come on to creators, that necessitate actually you want to have a strategy that covers not just linear TV or streamers, but you've got to have your YouTube strategy. It's not just a question of putting clips on YouTube and that's okay, because you've got a proportion of the audience for whom YouTube is their primary platform. So you've got Bluey that has a proprietary content strategy now for YouTube. They commission and create YouTube specific content.
Yes.
Recently, Nickelodeon hopped on that bandwagon. They've got Kid Cowboy, their first YouTube original.
Original, and that's a premium full-length, television show that is launching on,
For sure.
YouTube.
Yeah, so
Interesting, I
that's
believe
legit.
Nickelodeon's the number 1 publisher, in the entertainment space on YouTube, and BBC is number 2. BBC Studios, in particular, is number 2.
Mm,
But let's take the Cocomelon, example, or I mean, Cocomelon was started by a smaller studio as a
mm.
YouTube original, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it was Cocomelon and Gecko's Garage and a lot of those that now sit in the Moonbug stable were kind of mom and pop shop channels, um, but brought under the Cocomelon umbrella and scaled. I mean, scaled like crazy. I think
Massively, and now it's a massive hit on paid streaming and on free streaming. It's another good example. Moonbug is an example, but BBC Studios, which generates, I believe, more than $2 billion in revenue per year, has a massive infrastructure
Mm,
for social video to distribute on social video.
yes.
They have 2 channels, near the top of the rankings worldwide,
Mm,
Bluey and BBC Earth.
yes.
And so this is like there's a whole infrastructure. Is this the new normal? Does a producer in kids entertainment, given what you just described, husk and all approach to IP, merchandising, live,
Mhm.
social, premium sales, but then
Yep.
you're responsible for the audience on the premium platforms while it's there as well? Is that whole mishpacha business model the new normal for producers who are in this kid space? And is there an awakening that needs to happen amongst, especially in your zone in the UK, amongst those producers for this new normal as far as infrastructure goes?
Yeah, absolutely, because you being dependent on one channel is risky, right? Linear viewing is in decline. If you're YouTube only, they tweak the algorithm and your views drop off a cliff. So you need to hedge to be across all of those platforms, not just because we're in an attention economy and you need to be everywhere, but actually this is going to give your IP longevity. So but commissioning budgets are tighter than ever, so you've got to think about how you monetize elsewhere. We heard from Ampere Analysis at MIT Junior in London, where you and Marion were also there, that those commissioning budgets are shrinking and they're
Yeah.
tighter than ever. So,
That's the thing is, so yeah, if linear, well, I think everybody's kissed linear goodbye, although there is a decent amount of viewership still there, even in the kid space. On the other hand, the streamers, Netflix, Disney Plus, who are sweeping up a tremendous amount of the viewing from broadcast. YouTube is
mm,
taking up a lot of it,
mm,
but Disney Plus and Netflix is taking up a tremendous amount. They're usually number 2 and 3 in the kid space worldwide. They're commissioning less and they're paying less per commission.
yeah.
And if you're tying your whole boat on selling series to them and you're
Oh,
not building your own audience.
you're going to be waiting a long time. You're in the line to pitch to the commissioners, and you're one of a long line. And even if you get some money out of them, it's a smaller proportion than ever, which then leaves you going out and trying to pull together the jigsaw of funding from whomever you can get it from. But even you look at the likes of Netflix, who we've said are still part of that ecosystem for kids, but they're investing less in original kids content.
Right.
But now they're looking towards YouTube. So they're
Right.
looking to Miss Rachel. What they're doing is they're looking to creators on YouTube who've already made their mistakes there. They've iterated their content, they've done the hard yards, pivoted their content if necessary, and then grown their audience. They're pushing that risk that original creation risk onto them. So, I mean, that we've seen Miss Rachel, Coco Melon lives very happily on Netflix. So that's what they're doing now, almost as if they don't. I mean, they're de-risking content, but it's almost as if they don't trust their own ability to come up with original ideas anymore. Creators are the ones that do that.
Yeah, I think it's a yes and to that question, which is on one hand, they haven't had a high hit rate worldwide on every single title. I mean, they have massive hits, so it's hard to
Mm,
argue against that. But then you look at that recent Chris Pratt vehicle, which cost $1 billion and was a big disappointment.
mm,
And I think this is a bit of a hedge. This is a bit of a diversification.
mm,
Plus, they see YouTube kicking their ass in the UK, in the US, month after month after month after month, which is why Ted Sarandos got serious about putting video podcasts on the platform this week. And
yep,
then, but crucially, to your point, Sidemen, they buy a big series from Jake Paul. We can, obviously, and these are all kids programming too. Jake Paul has massive following with
oh,
men under the
Sidemen,
age of
huge
24.
following amongst kids.
Sidemen, huge. That is the new sports
Mm,
for people under the age of 25. Ms. Rachel is kids programming and
mm,
one of the biggest kid stars on the face of the earth. So yeah, I think they are predicting where this is all heading.
mm.
Do you think so these are 3 generations, millennials somewhat, but in particular Gen Z and Gen A. These are 2 generations raised on social media,
Yep,
right?
completely.
Google and now TikTok as their
Mm,
search engines, right?
yep.
Um,
Social first, digitally native. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with now. That's the operating context.
and let's use your kids as a case study. They are used to a incredibly fragmented, splintered dashboard when they log on YouTube.
No, I agree, and mine too. And I think back to your point about the Netflixes and the Disney Pluses, when we've got this fragmentation, we've got multiple markets in global markets at the moment, but each with their cultural nuance, their regulatory frameworks, population factors. Europe is old. I heard you say that in Copenhagen, but that makes it really hard when mass scale is your business model, particularly when kids. What's interesting is kids' taste factors are changing, mainly shaped like what we've said is the access to tech, but also they're looking further afield with regards to their storytelling. So we spoke about Bluey, the amazing Digital Circus, which was a YouTube first property that Netflix
Right.
also took. Again, came out of Australia. You've got Mighty Little Bean, which came out of India, which blew up on YouTube and ended up on Netflix. And Netflix even this week they went on the record talking about investing more in South Korean content. So we've got this fragmentation, the rise of anime. About half of Gen Z and Gen A in the US watch anime weekly. It's huge. It's huge on Roblox too.
Crunchyroll has a massive, massive audience. I mean, not by Netflix standards, but by, BritBox standards and other
Yeah.
small streamers, yeah.
Yeah. So this those that can then tap into those niches, those fragments, then have got the
Right.
power, and that's where the algorithms come in. What's interesting is what is the same is that kids are largely kids, and developmentally they don't change that much over time. So what I mean there is the stage at which it's about skill acquisition, or when they develop a sense of self, or they start to assert their independence. They kind of happen consistently. But what happens now, where we've got access to almost infinite media, is creators can better thin slice and create for those smaller niches. So whereas the big broadcasters, the BBCs, the Netflix, they tend to create for preschool, 6 to 9s, 9 to 12s, you've got creators now that can create for smaller age groups, developmental stage, and interest. So that gives them the ability to target much more in a much more nuanced, sophisticated way than the rather unwieldy way that those big Netflix and Disney global platforms
And
do.
that's the new competitive state. Importantly, it's not broadcast or streaming or social video or app based. It's all the creator economy. BBC is a creator. They behave as a
Mm,
creator. When they act around Bluey, they're actually one of the best creators on the face of the earth.
mm,
And the statistics argue that. So fragmentation is this new normal, and you have to be able to wade through it. And the best way to wade through it is to be the best creator in the world on any
Yes.
platform that you're on.
Yes.
So two-part question. On the platform side, it seems as if you're saying you need a creator strategy. What is your creator strategy? How do you bring not just their audiences, because that's not always successful,
Mm,
but crucially, their voices into your platform. The way it seems like Netflix is leaning very heavily into it. We'll see how it's doing. We
mm.
don't know right now, right? With Ms. Rachel, the Sidemen thing hasn't launched yet, I don't believe. And so we'll see how that goes. But it does seem like you're saying that. Is that an accurate read?
I think creators creators need to be brought on board, not just as partners, but also distribution channels.
Uh,
Again,
uh,
they bring their audience, but they can also be a distribution channel for you. But it's also thinking like creators, because as you've said, established studios like BBC Studios, they are creators now, but they have to learn these new rules of
Yeah,
engagement,
and
like
that's
TikTok and stuff.
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is the division. So
Oh,
there are two different parts to this question, which is platform. Forget that they're a studio for a second.
yeah.
Part of the acquisition, it seems as if kids has to be a part of your strategy, no matter who you are, because that is one of the great anti-churn mechanisms
Mhm,
in the premium streaming business. And
mhm.
Netflix learned that early on, which is why they've always been so heavily into kids. Amazon knows this. They have a big kid strategy. Disney Plus is obvious. Um, Disco Brothers, HBO Max really fucked up their kid strategy on 1,000, and it's one of the reasons why I really don't think that platform will survive.
Mm.
Um, but as platforms go, it seems to say whether you're in partnership with them or from a programming standpoint or a marketing standpoint, you have to have a major creator strategy if you want to attract and keep people under the age of 20.
Because you know, those creators are their superheroes. They've had these parasocial relationships through these things for the last 10 years, 12 inches with, Mr. Beast or Miss Rachel. So those creators now are the movie stars from when we were young.
Right.
But they're
They are
real.
Hollywood.
They are Hollywood. It's the reason that Jake Paul was, given permission to fight Mike
And
Tyson.
$40 million and
Yes.
$40 million. Yes.
Yeah, so they have power, and this is, it took Mr. Beast 13 years to be an overnight success. That dude ground it out. He figured out where he was losing audiences in each video. If he spotted a pattern, he didn't do it. I mean, he
Well, but
learned that.
let's look at and crucially, now let's pivot. So, I agree. I think having a creative strategy for programming on platform, but to your major point, marketing in
Mm,
particular.
mm.
I mean, Netflix hired the, owl from Duolingo, who's an influencer on TikTok, to promote the new season of Squid Games. On the flip side, as a studio, as a producer, as a production company, it sounds as if you're also saying part of your development process has to be building IP and audience specific to social video.
Completely. I mean, it used to be that you created your IP, your show, it was in the can and ready for broadcast, and then you thought about your distribution strategy, your first window, second window. Now, really, you need to think about your distribution strategy across all of those platforms whilst you're creating the IP and the show. You've got to think about how you articulate the essence of your characters and your world and your storyline in 15 seconds on TikTok. You've got to think about what the deep dive content is, the shoulder content on YouTube, because we know that young people will swim around in content on YouTube. Quick soapbox moment. Attention spans are just fine. It's interest spans that have contracted. Because if a kid on YouTube is interested in something, oh, their attention spans are just fine.
Right, exactly. That fallacy of the shortening attention span. But let me double click on that. You're talking about again distribution strategy. I'm also thinking about origination strategy. So
Mm,
let's use the Coco Melon one, but let's look at somebody who is not necessarily kids programming, but young person programming. The Chicken Shop Date.
yes.
This is an original series that BBC Studios helped create on YouTube. We can look at other YouTube originals, Nickelodeon as well. Moonbug, his entire
Mm,
business is built on
mm,
creating IP first on social video and then selling it to someone else at a much higher price
Yes.
because it's bringing an audience along with it. Do you
Yes.
think that that's the model that, and if it's not the exclusive model, it certainly has to be a component of your company's strategy?
It does, and that is because you've got the ability to test your content on YouTube. And this is what creators have done. They've honed their craft, not least because they're on the platform all day long. They are much closer to the audience than the Netflixes, the BBCs, and the Disney's of this world. They're
Much
there.
closer.
They're in
Yeah.
amongst them. These are their kin. So they instinctively know how to create content that resonates, whereas there's a much greater distance between those that are sat in the corporate boardrooms at Disney and Netflix. But also, again, we come back to this iteration. Years and years ago, when I was exec producing content, you made it and it was perfect first time. That was it. Your show was done.
Right.
But now this is they're leaning in. It's messy. They tweak it. They push and pull it around. But then when they hit on it, that's when it blows up. That's a completely different way of creating content as a studio, as a publisher, to the previous 20, 30 years. So again, it's a change in how you create. Go back to Netflix, they're letting those creators and those publishers do all that, the hard yards, and then when it's nailed, it's ready, it's cooked.
It's
Okay,
baked. Yeah.
yeah,
They
we'll have
scoop
it.
it up and serve it as fresh baked. Look what we baked for you, audience, as if we did.
Absolutely.
And we'll see if that
Love
strategy
it.
works. I think it's a very savvy strategy to the point, and
Mm,
I predicted this numerous times, and now I may be manifesting it. I think Netflix is going to announce a free creator-led sphere, including podcast videos and things like Ms. Rachel and Sidemen
I
that
completely
boost
agree.
their ad product. I think they're going to announce it within the year,
Mhm,
maybe as soon as this upfront. But I
mhm.
just feels like that they keep floating balloons towards that end.
Yes. Yeah, completely, and you can see it's a sensible strategy for them.
Yeah,
It
it makes
it
a lot of sense.
it does make a lot of sense, yeah. So, yeah, I can see that coming too. We're seeing Mr. Beast getting picked up by Amazon, where,
Pop the
I
Balloon now on Netflix as well, although that's pretty controversial. So let me ask you a question. You come from the most traditional of media, right?
Yep.
You must have started when you were in your teens. And
Bless
so
you.
you come from the most traditional of media. You've worked it as a buyer, which is a hard set of perks to leave, right? Word.
Yeah.
And now you're out on your own, but you seem almost comfortable with the chaos.
Oh, I love
How
it.
how did you transform from someone inside very traditional media to someone who is as comfortable navigating the chaos as a sole proprietor, I might add,
Mm.
as you are and you do?
I've come to the conclusion the older that I've gotten that just a change junkie, and that's but that's great because I can't think of a time when media and kids media in particular has been changing quite so fast. And yeah, I love the chaos of it. I often say that working in the kids media business puts you in the future business because they're already way ahead of us. Let's face it, we're just running to try and keep up and figure out a business model to mirror their behaviors. So that's really what I love because kids will break stuff. They mess about with stuff. They don't use platforms and applications in the way they were intended to. And that's great because that's how we learn how to serve them better. And my future income and yours too is going to be reliant on them pretty soon. So
Yeah,
I think
well, we need to start getting them to have babies too, so we have a society to
oh,
sustain. Well,
goodness.
that's a whole
Oh,
other
don't go
conversation.
all Handmaid's Tale on me now.
Yeah, right,
Um,
exactly.
but,
Sorry
um,
to go there.
yeah, so I just love what kids do with media, how they consume it, now how they're creating it themselves. They've got
Right.
studios in their pockets and the means to
On
create
Roblox, on YouTube,
on
on all these
Roblox.
other, yeah.
Yeah, Roblox is a low code platform. You don't need a computer science degree to spin up an experience. It might, my 15-year-old did it. It was only ever intended to be played in with him and six friends. That doesn't matter. He was able to create a Mandalorian hide and seek game. So
Wow.
this is what's so fascinating and so heartening at a time when actually young people can be they're demonized in a lot of many ways. You see what they're doing with media and how they're engaging with it. And I think that's the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for stepping in while Marian abandoned me to go on a high seas adventure. It's been great talking to you. It's always great to see you. You add such great value to our ecosystem and to our community. I know everybody that follows me on LinkedIn thinks that about you as well. So I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, for checking out this episode of the Media Odyssey podcast. Joe, what's your podcast again?
The Kids Media Club podcast.
Great. You can get that anywhere you get podcasts. We'll see you soon. I believe Marion and I are getting back together, but she's got a co-host while I'm on vacation, and we each have solo episodes coming up. So check those out. Thanks, everybody.